Hi everyone, welcome to our podcast Mindkshetra Talks Lost in Translation. We are a mother and daughter duo who are of South Asian origin and who are Australians living in Sydney.
We are using this podcast as our voice to unpack topics that are often lost in translation within our South Asian community. Hi, Mummy!
Hi Kanna. I am Rupa. I'm a mental health professional, and Mindkshetra Talks is a channel I started during COVID to raise some awareness about the stigma within the South Asian community, which when it comes to mental health.
I am Ritti or Ritti. I am a uni student who is at film school, which is pretty unconventional for someone who is of South Asian descent. And yeah, I'm excited to join my mother, Rupa Pathasarathi, on this podcast. So, Mummy, what is the first topic we are going to talk about today?
I think the first thing I really need to mention is your accent and how over the time when you started talking, you have two different accents. But I think today's topic is also about your primary school. What were some of the experiences when you were in primary school? I was a new migrant. What were some of the things which were happening for you? And so on.
I mean, when I was in primary school, I went to a predominantly Indian primary school. Why do you think that is, Mummy? And do you think that has something to do with like you coming from overseas? Because I think it did, and I think it definitely influenced a lot of who I am today. But like, I want to ask you because you are the one who put me in that primary school. What
Yeah,
was your
so when
like
we
take on it?
migrated to Australia for the first time, and you were not born then, the idea was to come to the country so that you have better opportunities. We were living in United Arab Emirates, that's where you were born. And the idea when we came as migrants were very rosy. We were going to find a job and we wanted to live in a suburb, which was a little different. But when we came here, the reality was completely different. I think a major part of being South Asian is revolves around food and where is the availability of food and also the affordability. And when you have less savings in your bank account and you have a child, you tend to live closer to the area where you can get all amenities in terms of bus, train, and somebody was a good area to start living in. That's a part of Western Sydney, where predominantly you find South Asian and people of Eastern Asian population over here. And I don't think we gave it much of a thought. It was much more of a convenience. And you were a year old when you came here, year and a half old. So we thought, why not? And schools was considered one of the best schools, and it still is one of the best public schools available. And I think one thing which attracted her for us here in Australia is that you don't have to pay for education, because from where I come from, depending upon the class you are born in, education is a big cost. And so that idea that you didn't have to pay for education and you can go to a public school free of cost kind of was what made me enroll you.
Mm.
But how did you find it when you
Um,
started primary school, and what were
I,
some of the challenges for you?
I mean, it was definitely a new experience. I mean, every primary school is for every kid, I imagine, is a new experience because you're trying to make new friends and you're trying to understand like who you are as a person. But at the same time, you are at that age where you are so influenced by other people around you. And you can't help but not take on that advice because you assume that all advice is good advice. So I mean, I remember making friends very easily. I was fortunate enough in that sense. Um, and I think when the kids make friends, the parents automatically have to make friends because they're like, oh, our kids are friends, so I guess we have to be friends. But I really enjoyed it. It was just when we started doing like actual work and actual schoolwork and homework that I could kind of sense I was a little bit different because my experience of primary school is that a lot of my friends they were like, oh, we have to do tuition and we have pre-uni. And I was like, this is a very new concept to me because, you didn't put me in pre uni and you didn't put me in all those classes until I said, look, mummy, like all my friends are doing it. And that's where the whole Kumon thing started. But it was a very unique experience because I am a very different learner, so it takes me a while sometimes to understand things. But everyone around me started picking up things like super fast. So I kind of felt very left behind. Um, and I think I'm very glad I had a mum like you in that sense because you were the one to like tell me like, no, no, it's okay. Like you're gonna learn, you're gonna understand. And I think I kind of was a little bit bullied or like set on the sidelines because they were like, oh, Rithi doesn't get it. She doesn't understand immediately. So she must be stupid. And I think for a kid who's so young to get exposed to something like that is very scarring. And the listeners won't know, but you know, mummy, that how much I've talked about. I remember more negative things about primary school than positive things because something like that shaped me so much. And like what was your take on the parent side? Because the kids were always like it was all friends. We were all fine as friends and we bonded over the other things. But when it got to the learning styles and actually doing the work, my friends were like speeding ahead and I was the one always left behind, and I didn't understand concepts as fast, and it took me ages. And they were always like, "Oh, Rithi doesn't get it. She must be stupid." Or you don't go to pre-uni. That's probably why. You should go. Like, and I was like, it was just very confusing, and I was struggling to understand where I fit in. But what was your take on seeing how the parents reacted to that?
My take on that was I felt really peer pressured, and I came from a background where um, academics was the be all and end all, and I wanted to move away from that model of parenting, and I wanted to be a conscious parents. When I say I think I can very safely include we because it was your dad and I. We've always taken decisions together. So as parents, we had very conscious and very firm ideas on what education should be and what a learning should be. And though I put you in a school which was predominantly South Asian, I would feel completely out of place with the moms. And I'm not too sure if you remember that I would always, and being the quiet one, I would always feel like every conversation I had with a parent, there was a lack which was staring back at my face. Now, in retrospect, after becoming mental health professional, after a long time, it's taken me 10 years into the journey of being here. Now, it's only for the past 5, 6 years, I'm a mental health professional. I think there is a lot of well-being aspects that are not considered when it comes to migration and separation and occult relation, and all those things are never talked about. It's always like they paint a rosy picture and there is this expectation that you have to fit in. So while you were struggling to fit in, um, and I would sense it in some way, but I was also in denial because the peer pressure told me that I was not a good mom. Very distinctly remember one conversation where there was this. I was trying to get my head around the education system. I have never been in this education system, and I kind of felt like I was in awe where you were not given homeworks, you were doing art in class, and you had all these experiential learning. So I did not buy into the concept of selective school. And I remember we had gone to a Ganpati Puja to somebody's house, a friend of yours, and they invited us. And there was this discussion on where you're going to go, which selective school to go, and all that. And a parent asked me, another parent, somebody I have never met, she was not even a close friend of mine, and she's never met me, and she said, which coaching class is your child going to? And I said, she's not going to any, and she doesn't have to write a pre-selective exam.
As in coaching, like extra, like after school,
Like
like
a
classes.
pre-uni class,
Yeah.
like a pre-uni class. And I told her, but she's not going any. Why do we need to? If there is a public school in which a feeder school she would go to, she would. Otherwise, she would be going into any other schools. And we came here to run away from the rat race. And I remember very distinctly she staring point back into my face and saying, but what kind of mother are you? You're doing a disservice to your child.
Ah.
How would you know that she does not want to go ahead in her life. And I said, I know my daughter, and she is a different kind of learner. And the minute I said she's a different kind of learner, the vocabulary used was, oh, is she a little dumb?
That is that's the mindset, I think, and it I'm trying to look at it from both angles because it obviously can come up from a place of innocence because obviously every parent thinks, not that I'm a parent, but I assume you thought you knew what was best. So that mother must have thought she knew what was best for her child. But I think it's so wrong, and it's not in anyone's place to say that your child is dumb, or just because you are not putting your child in a coaching class, it's like a disservice because we don't know. It could be, but it could not be at the same time. But I think that's so such from a judgmental place that she's saying that. So
I
how
think
did you navigate from that
I think
experience?
the tone of how you pass comments, and I think as a culture, we kind of feel like we have earned the right to talk about topics, and there is no concept of boundaries is a very westernized culture. If you know somebody, you can comment on it. If you have an opinion, you can express it. Whether or not they are your friend, whether or not they are your acquaintance, there is no level of filter on what you should say to somebody, how it would affect them. And often it is said in a tone of judgment. And you're right, she thought she was doing the best. I thought I was doing the best. It is just the tone of judgment. And also this inability to understand, and she was visually getting agitated, this inability to understand that I am not succumbing to a peer pressure. However, I'm pretty sure I walked out with this feeling that I am doing something wrong, and she might have walked out with the feeling that maybe she's doing something wrong, because in both our situations, however, because I did not know how to have these hard conversations as a parent. Nobody teaches you, especially in a South Asian culture. A mom has a lot of responsibility on bringing up a child, and so does a dad. But equal importance. But there is nobody to guide you. There are certain things which are said. The style of parenting I call is I was raised up with, and in Western cultures you have authoritarian, you have you have all these fancy terms: authoritarian, authoritative, disengaged, and all that. uh, I call Indian parenting do as I tell you.
Wow.
uh, and that's how I was brought up in, and I was stuck between this place of finding out the difference between respect and finding my voice. So if you disagreed with somebody else, it was disrespectful. There was
Mm.
no way for me to have a confrontations without saying that I'm not disrespecting you, but I'm having a different view.
Mm.
But on what I am curious to know is, as a primary school child, you spoke about being bullied,
Mm.
and what is the one reason do you think primary school children never kind of come and tell it to their parents? I keep wondering about this, given that, I kind of feel like there are a lot of my peers who are really conscious. It's not only me. In my generation, there are a lot of parents who have evolved, who have migrated, who want to be there for kids. But I still find that there is this lack of trust or lack of inability to communicate. What do you think stopped you from even telling me? I know it took a lot of it was another friend of yours who dobbed that you were being bullied, uh, and I'm thankful for that. But why do you think you felt like you couldn't come to me?
I think I I don't know. I think I was still trying to like navigate because you want to fit in with your friends. So you think that if you don't say anything, if you just kind of pretend that you're just going to fit in with your friends. And because the main thing is you want to find, because at that time it's like uncool to, be friends with your parents and have that good relationship. But I think there was this sense of fear instilled because your friends, the people you're spending time with 5 days a week for 6 hours, the people around you are telling you you're dumb. So what's the point of telling my parents? They're just going to tell me the same thing. And you're just scared that, they're going to do something. Or I think there was also another fear of, oh, they're going to tell my friends something, which means I'm not going to have friends anymore. So it's this external fear of, well, they're bullying me, but they're also the people that I want to hang out with, and they're the people I like. so I think there's also that fear, but like it's just making me think of like a funny moment because I think there was also this joke of like, now it's a joke, but at the time it's like, oh, you did something wrong, I'm gonna tell my mom on you. Like, what is your mom going to do? Like, what is she going to do? Like, fight me? I'm a child. So it's like it's just funny to think about it now, but um yeah, I don't know why I didn't come and tell you. I think I was just scared of like what you were gonna say. I think either it was like, oh yeah, I know you are dumb, because I'm not. And like no child is dumb at all. Like please, like parents, do not, please don't tell your child that. But
I
yeah,
think
I think it
dumb,
was just,
stupid, slow, um, a little less intelligent, and unfortunately, we assign all these labels only when the child can't study.
and I think also you start comparing to other kids, right? You say, oh, look at this one's daughter, like she's doing so well in pre-uni, why can't you do the same thing? It's like, well, I'm not, like, then go adopt that child if you want to, go adopt that one. I'm your child. Like, oh, this uncle's son is doing so well. Like, why can't you do something like that? Okay, adopt him. I don't know what you like, so it's just this comparison of, like, I think also parents compare their kids to other people. So then it automatically puts them in that rat race. And I think parents had a big influence on what a child says at that time, because it's like, oh, my mum puts me in all these classes. Your mum doesn't do that. Oh, because I have to do this exam, and if it's very important to me that I get 99 out of 100, or like I need to come first. So it's already from that young age, that sense of a rat race is already instilled. So you can't help but like go into life thinking that's how you should come out. So there was already that sense of, oh, you're going to be behind, you don't understand, one plus three immediately. Oh, forget it, you're never going to get it. Or you don't know that like you put these two together and they work. No, you're never going to get it, never going to understand. Yeah.
I also think there is a lot of connection, and it's very unconscious. I think I might have done it in the earlier stages as well, because that is the style of parenting I saw. Like there is a very unconscious thing which happens when you're not able to cope. So the parent becomes worried as to why you're not able to cope, and the idea is to support. So it comes from a very good intention. Oh my god, my kid is slow. In the grander scheme of things, um, if you kind of don't score well, if you kind of don't pass the exam, if you kind of don't do the assessment, where is my child going to be? So it comes from a very good place. However, unfortunately, what that relates to the child, I am thinking, is, and this is what I'm talking from my own primary school experience, when you only associate, uh, or appreciate or acknowledge marks as being the benchmark, you somewhere start associating your self esteem and your self confidence to your academic skills. And you start believing, if I get good marks, I'm a good person.
Hmm.
I'm a good child. I've got good self esteem. If I get bad marks, I am not. And I think I've told this dialogue and you often call it, it's filmy. One thing Appa and I have always told you is, we loved you for who you were even before you were born.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of the parents are the same.
Yeah.
However, our peer pressure, or maybe it is how the society kind of wants us to operate, we kind of somewhere unconsciously fall into this thing of, okay, this is the system you need to exist in. This is the system you are going to be in. So even though we have moved away from India, I kind of found it very funny that we kept repeating it. And what I did, I don't think it was good for me, but what I did in terms of wanting to not be like that, I started cutting away from a lot of friends. So I would not, I did not have many friends at all when you were growing up. And that impacted on your social skills, because I didn't make friends with any of your friends' mom other than calling them for birthdays. And
Mm.
you did not understand why I'm not going to parties and why I'm not mingling with this auntie, and I'm why, when you started knowing that they are all meeting together, and somewhere you started feeling leaving out. But I was not able to assimilate, because they were not of people of the same wavelength. And I
Mm.
thought, And I think it's a little bit, it's not a great decision at that time, and I thought staying away is the best way, you know. And I isolated myself, which was not good for my own well-being and support system. And I only have like very few friends, and it's only recently again I've started, having many many more friends, and understanding that sitting with differences is a skill and ability I also needed to learn,
Mm.
right?
I mean, you've said well-being, so I think because this is Mindshaped Talks, which is focusing on well-being. As a kid, I'll start from my experience, and then I want to hear from like as a mom. I feel like as a kid, I didn't know it then, but I was slowly going into this like bottomless pit. But I didn't know that like the people around me were the one using the shovel and like digging the hole for me. And I just like happily like jumped in because they were like, "Oh yeah, that's that's where you belong. You should just go in there." And I think from a well-being perspective, and because it happened at such a young age, it already kind of put me in that mindset of, like you said, like if you get good marks, you must be good, and if you get bad marks, then you're a bad person. But you tell me this dialogue is that fail means further attempts in learning. Like I don't even know why we have to associate. Like we have to put a stamp on someone that you failed and a stamp on someone that you passed. And I think from a mental health perspective, it kind of put like a dent in me, or like it just kind of took me back a little bit. And I became sad and left out. I didn't really know why. Um, and then
There
because
were
the
many
people,
days, there were many days where you would actually say, Amma, my stomach is hurting. Exactly when we had to go to the school, you will make some excuse or the other. You would be so happy to go to the daycare before school or after scare afterwards. But then, if there was a math exam, you would say, Mom, my tummy is hurting. Tummy. I've taken you to so many doctors, wondering what it is. Again, see, I did not have that much mental health literacy myself to understand that anxiety actually manifests as physical symptoms in a person's body, especially in young children who cannot verbalize what it fear feels like. Um, you would throw so many tantrums and aggression suddenly. Uh, you would be actually, you're by nature, you're a very happy go lucky, very calm child, very funny. And then I remember when you were 3 months old, the first emotion for you was giggles, like you would giggle endlessly. However, what I started seeing was you going too much into the shell yourself, and especially when I even changed your school and you went to a Catholic school. It is still primary school, but year six you went, and that was even a shock for you, right? Because suddenly, where you were among people of color, and now you had a variety where there were people from European backgrounds, and again you started questioning, where do I fit in? And though it seemed like an improvement academically, and I could get some confidence back for you because year six, you had personal attention, and I had realized that I had spent too much time trying to make you fit into a system which was not working for you, and I actually had to remove you from there. And we did see the change, but it was too late by then. You had started having a lot of self doubt, anxiety as a child, which had physical symptoms, manifestations of it, which then makes me wonder how many of us parents who are especially migrants and who don't have that support of family, because there are no different levels of support. If you were in India, you would be, having probably people who are more like you, grandparent support and all that. And suddenly, because the entire responsibility falls on parents like Appa and I couldn't see it. And even when I saw it, there was a long time where I denied it. And I thought I could fix it. Up until it showed me back at my face, and I said that the only thing I needed to shift was my perspective towards mental health and nothing towards you. There was nothing wrong with you. You are not anxiety. You are experiencing anxiety, and anxiety, like any other thing, is a manifestation of something which says that it is wrong. We give a lot of, if you were sick or if you had anything physical, I would have fought for you and been your advocate. And I kind of feel like that was something I should have done a little bit better as a parent at that time.
mm. I think there's this ongoing thing of like when we look at anxiety, we look at it as like a disease, but it's just an emotion and it's just like a phase that you're feeling in that time. Like just because you're happy does not mean you're going to be happy all of the time. We're human. We have to feel like a variety of emotions. So I think there's this debate of like why as soon as when you say I'm anxious or I'm depressed, you people just put you in this bubble of like you have this mental disease. There's something wrong with you. But if you said to someone like I'm excited and I'm happy, like then they're gonna celebrate what you're happy about and what you're excited. Why is it that when we say these things, and as a child, especially for primary school, like that has such an impact on you and the external environment around you?
I think there is a lot of language which is missing because anxiety and depressions are mental illnesses which can happen, which happens on a prolonged time, and there is a lot of vocabulary which gets mixed. Being anxious or feeling sad or depressed for short periods of time is not bad. Okay, it's a part of a human emotion. And anxiety is actually a mental health condition, and depression is a mental health condition. But people often confuse of being anxious as something being wrong with you. It's a signal that something is not working for you, and that you need to take some steps to manage it. Every single, even if it is an illness, and I think even if you have an anxiety disorders, and there are varieties of anxiety disorders, and there is mental, and for depression as well, you need to understand and acknowledge that this is happening to me, and there are many ways in which there is help available. And to answer your question, I think we give a lot of emphasis on feeling happy and feeling upright and emotional because that is what is celebrated in our culture, like in Bollywood movies, in Tamil movies. And don't even get me started about the mentality of how the while we are all the same on the outside, inside we have so many nuances when it comes to the language we speak, and each and everyone separates themselves based on the language they speak, the region they come from. I think overall, and in the umbrella term of South Asians and especially people from Indian background, we celebrate a lot and give a lot of value for people who are always positive and happy, and see sadness and feeling anxious or anything other, like feeling angry or feeling something which is other than happy or sad, as a negative trait. You know, um, in my generation, I used to get a lot of anger, and now I understand that anger and frustrations are emotions which happens when you're not able to communicate that certain value has been when you're not able to communicate on a value level. I understand that now. However, the vocabulary is not there, and there is a lot of confusion when it comes to mental health literacy on what it is. And I think I have told you this. I had to actually go and search what's the name for anxiety in Tamil, and what is the name for depression in Tamil, right? So we come from a very complex background. And I think that is why we celebrate one thing over the other, because if you don't talk about it, then it doesn't exist.
Hmm. Mm, definitely. And I think when you said those tummy aches and like the me faking the sickness, that was just me feeling anxious and pretending because like I can't like I don't know if they would accept on like my sickness form when I came back. Yeah, she didn't come to school today because she was anxious. Like you have to give a like physical you have to give a physical connotation of she had a tummy ache, but the truth is that she was anxious and she was feeling left out and bullied because of, all the stuff going around her.
And I think you didn't even have the vocabulary at that time. You didn't even know you were anxious. All you
Mm,
could see is that heaviness in your chest and that pit of the feeling in the stomach, and just a general denial, like you didn't want to go, and there was no label bullying. And
mm.
I very naively thought it doesn't happen to my child.
Yeah. It's always this thing, it doesn't happen to my kid, of, like, it doesn't happen to me, it doesn't happen to my friends.
Because you
And
were
I
very
think,
social also, you would bring friends home. All the friends who you said was bullying, actually one of the friends was the one who used to be your best friend. So I was like, I'm sure. And I so remember that we would have these daily check-ins. How was your school? And you'd say it was good. And here I was imagining that I'm actually checking on you, but something else was happening for you at that time.
mm, Yeah, it was always this thing of like, and there was always this thing of like, we need to have private conversations, and you'd have private conversations about the person who was supposedly your friend. Um, and I think that also like just took a toll on me. And also when you used to get your marks back from school, when your teacher used to hand it, like you didn't want to show anyone because you were embarrassed. It's not that like, and I think also in that environment, the teacher doesn't say like, "Oh, can we? I would love to help you improve." It's like, "Oh, you just didn't do really good on this test." And so because the teacher also says it, your friends also say it, right? So you just kind of feel a little bit
And
like
I
set
think
back.
I used to fake, you used to fake it a lot. You now tell me that you were faking it. What do you want to share to the listeners what you would do?
I my well, like you put me in this exam. It was like because again, all the other parents put their kids in the exam, so you thought again, I'm doing a disservice to my child, so you put me in this exam. And it was like exam or something stupid like that. Um, and
It's
I
stupid
used to
for
get
you,
always
but not for
stupid for
others.
me.
Yeah.
No, I'll say that stupid for me. And I used to get like passes and credits, and everyone around me is getting like distinctions and high distinctions. So because I thought that you were going to be upset that like I got really bad, like I used to make myself cry, which again is so toxic. I don't know why I did that.
Very
You,
manipulative, I think. So you used to
yes.
make yourself cry, and I used to feel, because this was right after the bullying incident, so I was very conscious of every time you would cry, and I was very sensitive to you crying, not knowing that you're manipulating. So you would make yourself cry so much, like, you'd be heaving coming to me, and I would ask you, is everything all right? Are you okay? What are you doing? And then you'd say, I just didn't get a mark. And I would be like, what marks? No, and I am never a person who was keen on marks. Not that I don't value if you get good marks, and people always misunderstand when I say this. But getting a mark, I think, depends on that day of the exam. A mark is not a reflection on your ability, it's a
Definitely.
reflection on your ability on that day,
Mhm.
on what you could remember, what you could regurgitate, and how comfortable were you to answer those set of questions which you prepared for.
Mhm.
No sign of your It is not sign of your intelligence, it is not sign of your capability, it is not a sign of your skill set. We have this marking system to understand if you've been able to retain the knowledge, because as a trainer I know that I do that. But what it should be like, if you did not retain the knowledge, the conversation would be, in what other ways can we actually help you get that
Yeah.
knowledge?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
you didn't get it A, B, C, D. And we are also need to be aware that there are different learning styles. But what used to happen is you would be marked and then there is no follow up on that.
Mhm.
It's almost like you didn't get it, you're stupid.
But they only used to teach in one learning style. This is the thing. They never used to teach in because I know now I'm a visual learner and I like having things on the wall and I like, having it in front of me. But they only used to teach it in one style. I can't remember, but it was always like, okay, this is the concept, like write it down. Did you
But
get
I
it?
think I think they did teach us a visual style, and I know that nowadays school do have some auditory learning. But for some reason, at that point in time, I think you also like need to understand that it is hard for teachers to teach on
It
different
is.
learning
It
styles
is.
for to cater to everybody. I don't think, and I think we should all take charge of our own learning. And you know, I think the lesson here for me is just to understand that there are different learning styles, and then maybe kind of give an opportunity for you to explore that. Um, for me, I know I could have gone and done primary school a lot better with you, and I think I tried to do it with your sister, but I'm pretty sure that she also has a list of complaints on things which I didn't pay attention to. I'm pretty sure she was not bullied, but she did go through other things as well. So um the lesson for me being that while you're trying to assimilate as a new migrant into a country, paying attention to, or having a template, or being conscious enough that you don't have to do something just because others are doing. Uh,
Mm.
Put your
Is that your
well-being
advice?
first.
Is that your
That's
advice for parents?
that's my advice for parents. As a parent, if you're new to the country, find out how the system works, talk to different people, talk to people, and be curious about asking, what is it that, why is it that, how does the public school work, how does the, what is the selective school and all that. And we have come away from the rat race, and education should be about learning.
Mm-hmm.
Education should be about um, getting the child feel like they can do anything which is there. It
Mm-hmm.
should not be about making them feel hatred towards education. And pay attention to the small things when your child is saying that, or they are making excuses in my case, or your child is showing symptoms, just listen to them. uh,
Mm-hmm.
and understand that being anxious and being sad or depressed or being bullied has an effect on the mental health,
Mm-hmm.
and having these open conversations is what is going to support them. So what
Yeah.
would be your advice to to kids who
To
are
kids,
new, yeah,
um,
who are in
def
primary school?
definitely just do your own thing. You're a kid. You're supposed to make mistakes. Don't listen to what other people are saying. And I know it's so hard to find out who is the right person to listen to, but there's a lot of external influence on kids by their parents, by other factors. So just if you feel like you're doing the right thing, just go and do it because you won't know until you try. And if you fall down, it's okay. If you struggle to learn something, don't be afraid to ask for help because like there's nothing wrong with it. Because you're only going to be better by asking for help. Because if you don't ask for help, you're going to be in the same spot. Whereas if you ask for help, there's a chance that you actually could go further.
I do
That
have
would
one
be
question. Do you think primary school kids will be able to kind of understand this concept, asking for help and reaching out? What would be a very practical kind of a advice from your side if you were in primary school? Now imagine yourself as a small child. Would you have
mm.
listened to what mummy said, or would you have listened to what other kids said? And what is something you could have done as a primary child?
There's so many things. But I think as a kid I should have just been willing to take that chance and just like open my mouth and tried and like not worry about what other people thought of me because like they're not you and you're not them. So
Yeah,
just
and so maybe the best thing, I'm thinking, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
yeah.
I think for a primary school child, they need to find somebody, at least one person to talk to.
Mm-hmm. Find someone your own age that you like
Your
know that you're gonna just connect with.
own age. What about somebody older as well? Because own age might not have so much wisdom, no?
I mean own age because you're gonna be in primary school and you're like at school like 5 days a week. So but yeah.
I guess so. I guess so.
Mm.
And I guess that kind of concludes
It
our
does.
episode today.
That is our first episode of Mindkshetra Talks. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Do follow Mindkshetra on Instagram and Facebook.
She's
Um,
doing her accent again, and in one of the episodes, we are going to talk about what is this accent, where does it come from, and I'm going to sign off saying, I'm Rudy's mom. I'm Rupa
and I'm Rupa's
Kumar.
daughter. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.